Marilyn Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm going to be making this mixed media piece. Now, if you've seen many of my videos, you might recognize the background that's going on there, because that was one of those really ugly things that I made when I was just shaking off the blahs, when I was having fun playing with my art supplies. But it was a background that was fun to make, but didn't really like how it looked, until I started adding some layers to it. And with a stencil and a mask, I turned that background I didn't like into something that I loved. And along the way, feel free to laugh at me, as there are some things that I thought were going to be easy that weren't quite as easy as I expected. I started out by creating a hill or a ground for things to stand on using book text. Now I figured, how hard could this be, right? I'm just going to rip it up and I'll get this loose and flowing kind of line or vibe to the hill. And actually, this part of it really wasn't that hard. It's what came later because of it. Well, that ended up being a little more challenging. But as I'm putting this on here, you're getting a peek at that background. And as a background by itself, yeah, don't really like it at all. But I'm just going to keep little bits of it. I'm actually going to keep the shape of these creatures, these figments of imagination. What's inside those, I really like it when I see that. So how am I going to do that? Well, this stencil comes with all the masks of those creatures, and so what I'm going to do is put the masks down on the hill. That way it will save the background in just those spots, and I'll be able to put the paint everywhere else. One of the perks of having the masks is that you can kind of position these around here, see if they fit, see if you've got the spacing just right before you make any kind of commitment with paint. Now it looks like I'm just kind of moving these things around because, well, that is exactly what I'm doing. But the brain power that that's taking for me to pick and choose where I want what, this feels like I'm playing chess with a master. It's been one of those days. You know, when you have those long days and your brain just wants to play and not do any thinking? So anyway, once I get these where I want them, I do not want them to move because I feel like I put a lot of thinking into this. So I've taken some tape there and I'm simply making those tape circles with it to hold them in place. Tape that I'm using is an artist tape. You could use washi tape, painter's tape. You just want a tape that's low tack because, well, when I'm done with this, I want to be able to pull this off and I don't want to pull the stuff that's on there off with it. I carefully moved the book text off of there because I didn't want to get the black paint on it, thinking that I had the position close enough that it's going to make it a breeze when it comes time to glue that down. Yeah, there's a little foreshadowing of one of the challenges that's about to happen. I have the link down below so you can see the video where I made this background. But since I don't love this background as a whole thing, I had no problem covering it up. In fact, I was actually pretty happy to put that black paint all over it. Now, once I've got that black paint on it, then I'm going to pull up the stencil masks. I'm going to remove them gently, and what I have left are colorful, fun, crazy creatures here, who are just sort of floating in space. So I want to put the book text hill right back in place for them. And you know, this is actually pretty close to a Rubik's Cube for me. The more that I mess with it, the more things are out of place, and it's just getting harder and harder to put it back. All I really want is some kind of ground for these guys to stand on. So I am ripping up fresh pieces, I am moving stuff around, trying to get it positioned just right. And you know what? I decided this is too hard to do this way. Things are going to move around. I'm just going to start gluing this stuff down and I'm going to figure it out as I go. I thought putting this book text hill on here would be absolutely mindless, no problem. I was actually kind of dreading the amount of cosmetic sponging and stenciling I was going to have to do to cover this whole thing in. And guess what? It ended up being the reverse. Putting that black all over there was absolutely no big deal and didn't take very long at all. And the amount of brain power that I feel like I've had to use to figure out how to get this book text under their feet even after I'd planned it out once, well, it's almost embarrassing to admit that at this point. But by golly, I was determined to put some solid ground under their feet. So I kept messing around with this, and yep, ended up ripping out a few more pages to get pieces big enough to rip up and tear down and move around, but eventually I got there. Now I've put gel medium on the underside of this, and I've got gel medium on the top of it to seal it in. And guess what? It takes gel medium a couple of minutes to dry. So I'm putting enough on here that, yeah, it's not going to dry very quickly, but once I get it on, I really want some color on there. So what am I going to do? I could wait patiently for it to air dry. I could get out that heat gun and use that. But neither one of those ideas really work for me. One, I'm not patient to wait, and two, I hate getting a heat gun out. So what I'm going to do is put one of my splotters on it. Now I call these things splotters because you can make some cool ink splots with them, but what they actually are little dauber bottles. I filled it with art spray from Marabou, and I'm going to put that color on there and then just smear it around. If you don't have one of the dauber bottles, then definitely all you need to do is open up your spray bottle and dip a paintbrush in it. You can do the same kind of thing. Once the art spray dries, it will be permanent, which means it will not reactivate if it gets wet, which is why I love to do this whenever I want to add some translucent color to something. Now it turns out that struggle that I had with the book text till that left all these pieces of the book all around me, that was an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. Because seeing all of those pages around me, that got me thinking about found poetry. And then I started looking through the pages, looking for words or phrases that called to me so that I could add them onto this canvas. Now this became like a chess match between me and the text, trying to find the words or phrases that went together. I found some, but then I started looking for something specific. And if you've ever looked through found text for a specific word, yeah, that's like a needle in a haystack. So guess what? I let that go. So instead of trying to find a specific word, I decided to just relax, see what jumped out at me, and eventually the right word did appear. So in the end, here are the words that I glued onto these characters, creatures, critters. This cornerstone idea of connection to each other, permanent and universal, extraordinary. Now, is that Pulitzer Prize winning kind of poem? Absolutely not. But it is completely and totally what called to me when I was making this. To put the title on the page, I wanted some colorful book text. So out came the Marabou art crayons, and I got some color right on some pieces because, after all, I've got a few of those laying around on the counter right now from that hill I was building in the beginning. Smeared that around, and now I've got yellow paper. But one color's not enough, so I'm going to keep adding more color to pieces of book text. What I thought would become the title, this is the name of one of the chapters from the pages, was Concerning Human Understanding, and it really fit with the vibe of the words that I'd found in the book. Strange how that really works, right? When you get those all from the same book. But as I'm putting the colors on here, as I'm making more papers with it, completely don't like this idea whatsoever. So I abandoned it. I just set it aside, and yep, I'm going to call it an oops. Another outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. In that moment, I had no idea what I was going to do with them, but it turned out to be rather handy in one of the later layers. Well, I didn't know what I was going to do next on this. My idea of a title, that had fallen flat up there. So I'm just putting some color on here with some art crayons, blending it in, rubbing it around, and I'm waiting for my muse to magically drop the answer into my lap for what I'm supposed to do. And it turns out it wasn't exactly my muse, but the answer was dropped in my lap. So my daughter comes down to talk to me while I'm working in the studio, and she makes a comment about what a night sky that is and how it needs some stars in it. And at that point I thought, oh hey, it does kind of look like a night sky. It really hadn't registered to me that putting that black back there was creating the nighttime thing. Might have been really obvious to you this whole time, but this was about the part where I caught on to it. So I took those scraps of paper that had the color on it, and I started cutting a bunch of wonky stars out of those. You're about to see a third arm come into the frame. Now, it's not that I actually grew a third arm. That's my daughter, who not only gave me the great idea for the stars, but she also rescued me for the lost cap. I have stayed in this one spot. I have not gone anywhere while I'm making this, and I managed to lose the cap to one of the art crayons. I couldn't find it. I had no idea where it went. Down on the floor looking for it, behind things, looking through the trash, could not find it. I knew it had to be there somewhere because I hadn't gone anywhere. And she found it for me, guess where? Right inside the container where I keep all the art crayons. And you bet I'd looked in there like 6 times, but I didn't see it. She looks in there and finds it right away. I am super grateful that she took the time to come down and chat when she got off of work, because she played a big part in getting this thing finished up as well as finding that lost cap. And it was also very interesting to me that the whole point of the words that I found on this had to do with connection between people, No matter who you are, what you look like, what your history is, we're humans and we're all interconnected. And how fitting that I couldn't finish this one by myself. I needed that help, those ideas from her to get this done. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. I hope you've had as much fun as I have. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more on my play, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as I have a new video out. And if you'd like to be a part of my free workshop, Permission to Play, head on over to the blog at acolorfuljourney.com. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.